Are you able to see my screen clearly?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So those who are seeing in the mobile also, is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. I'm sorry, yesterday I could not take class because of the sudden examination duty. So I'll be handling today about using the tools of mobile interface design. So this is the topic for discussion today. I think this is the last concept in the first unit. So let us discuss about the two important concepts about mobile interface design. See, basically, as I discussed in my previous classes about what is the importance of putting the contents, designing the layout, and do the proper alignment and formatting in the mobile devices. Okay, so because the end users who are viewing the contents will be viewing on different devices, maybe mobiles of different screen size, tablets, smart TVs, or say Android laptops or any other kind of devices, including wearable devices also. So all said and done, once the designs and everything is being done by the developers, so now it is a time for testing and deploying the apps or the contents designed in the app to be made available on the mobile devices. For that, obviously testing has to be done. See, the typical requirement engineering process. Once the requirements are given, the companies or organizations will develop a requirement specification document. So based on the requirement specification document, conceptual designing would be done. Based on the conceptual design, different life cycle models is being drawn. So based on the type of the requirement and type of project, whether it is a process based project or migration project or development project, so a life cycle model of the model is being designed. So based on that, so development of code happens. And in some of the organizations, they also do agile modeling, where the coding and testing sometimes happens simultaneously, or once the coding is being completed to certain level after implementing certain requirements, then the testing will happen. So in almost all kinds of category of projects, so testing is mandatory. And the 60% of the total cost goes for testing. If the project cost is say 1 lakh, the 60,000 will go for testing. So the testing conforms to requirements compliance and the quality or the standards which is being written during a service level agreement between a customer and the organization. So here the user acceptance testing, there are functional testing, unit testing, regression testing, smoke testing, black box testing, white box testing. So there are different types of testings are available, which is being done at different levels. So last stage of testing is user acceptance testing. That means the end user, from the end user perspective, testing has to happen. Probably when you have studied software engineering, you would have come across what is called as a requirement traceability matrix. So we call it as RTM. That means whatever the requirements that is being drafted and given by the customer before the start of the project, so during the user acceptance testing, so the organization has to test whether all these requirements are properly understood and implemented and working as per the required expectations. So in the user acceptance testing, they do what is called as alpha testing and beta testing. So beta testing is more refined than the alpha testing. So even in mobile scenario also, they do a mobile testing. So which is basically called as user acceptance testing on the mobile platforms. So here, any project or any apps that you develop will have different users, okay, end users, I mean to say. So it is very important to understand their behaviors, their goals with accurate measurement and thorough analysis. That means, see, any requirements are drawn based on the user requirements. And when it is being implemented, it should be done with the accurate understanding and implementation from the implementation perspective, and thorough analysis needs to be done. Otherwise, it has to go for a next cycle. So if the organizations don't meet the expectation of the customer within a given interval of time, then again and again they have to do the rework. But at any point of time, industry standards say that more than 5% of the work should not be a rework. So more they do rework, so the expenses will be incurred at the organization. So in order to reduce that, so thorough analysis has to be done. And there are lot of different category of user acceptance testing which basically happens, and it is organization specific and as well as project specific. But identifying the right tool helps the designers to understand both from the qualitative perspective and from quantitative perspective what exactly the user is looking for after the testing. If at the point of user acceptance testing, they will understand if there are any drawbacks that are there as per the the expectations of the customer. Normally alpha testing is done by the organization, and the beta testing is done by the the development side. But several iterations have to be done to come to a common conclusion or conference to requirements applicability. So both the organizations and vendors has to sit and come to a conclusion that all the requirements are met, and this has to be documented. This is what happens exactly in user acceptance testing. The same thing from the mobile platforms, whether all the features that is intended for the users, okay, whether it is working properly or not, whether the layout is proper or not, whether the contents being projected in the apps is proper or not, whether is it possible to navigate from one screen to another screen, is there possibility to give some kind of a feedback from the end users to that specific apps, is there any possibility to give some reviews, if there are any the financial transactions involved in app, whether it is getting connected to a third party tool or server properly, whether processing is happening at both the sides properly or not, okay, whether the information flow is happening as per the defined work artifacts or not. So like this, so many informations needs to be captured. Okay, so this document user inputs and reactions earlier which they were doing in a mobile platforms were very, in fact, very outdated. There was no much user interactions. So once you have some data submitted, it is over. Okay, but there was no proper analysis being done. Okay, and no proper category of the users has been projected at different levels for improving the apps. See, only when you give some kind of a reviews, there will be a possibility for improvement in the apps. In some of the apps might work with only with certain category or kinds of devices, and if that app needs to connect to some of the permissions like maybe contacts or phones or apps, nowadays any apps that you develop will just try to ask whether will there be permission to access contacts or say phones or galleries, okay, or locations, etc. So we don't know whether that is risky or not risky. But some of the apps that you have developed, so will definitely need this kind of permissions. But it is left to the discretion of the developers to make sure that the information provided by the end users will not go in vain, or it will not be shared with any other third party tools for say personal benefits. Say for example, if you are having the apps such as say Airtel or Idea or Vodafone, whatever it is, so when you just try to book any SIM card or any other recharges, anything, at the bottom of the all the documentation, there will be a small box telling that I agree by all the terms and conditions. But nobody tries to read what is there, what is the contents that is being written in that documentation. So if you closely observe, there will be one line of statement stating that this information can be given to any third party vendors without the approval from the customers, but we don't know about it. So they will sell our mobile numbers and other related information which is not much confidential to a third party vendors, and they are going to do some kind of a benefits like that. Okay, so how security? I mean to say how much security you can provide to your application, how much reliability you can provide to your applications, how much robustness you can bring in your applications. So all these things can be considered under say information capture. And many times it so happens if I want to test my the applications whether it is working in all kinds of devices or not. So actually deploying all these applications in different kinds of devices, and whether if I want to be very sure that these applications will work without any lagging when say some 10,000 users logs in at a time. Okay, so I cannot make all 10,000 users to sit and do this kind of analysis. So for that there are various devices like some of the emulators or some of the simulators. Okay, and there are different techniques to do this kind of activities. But at the end of the day it becomes very important, okay, to understand that my application works for all category of end users for whom this application is being designed, and all navigations are happening in a appropriate way wherever there is tapping, wherever there is swipe. Okay, and wherever there is tapping on the specific icons. Okay, whether the textual information is displaying very correctly. So all this information needs to be captured properly. Okay, and to make sure that all these informations are working fine, because when you are deploying these apps in a Play Store, there are certain standard labels, contents and rules and regulations. So only if that is being done properly, then only there is a possibility for you to develop or deploy the apps into a Play Store. But if it is more about the commercial kind of application, that is totally different. Like paying a bill online or having some kind of like phone pay applications or Google Pay. Okay, so these are the some of the commercial applications which will have a lot of strict rules and regulations to carry out. At the same time, the screening on different devices. See, whatever I see in 4-inch screen, whether the same kind of visibility will be applicable when I'm using the same and say 5-inch screen or 6-inch screen. Suppose if I'm using the same contents on the tablets platform, whether it is giving the same kind of the effect. And also some of the apps it is not very much compatible with some of the browsers. So it so happens that your applications might have a feature where it needs to have a connection with your GPS system. Okay, so if there is a updated the GPS apps in your mobile devices, the apps which you are connecting to GPS should have a compatibility. Otherwise in many of the situations it so happens that from one app to move on to other features or other skills, there should be some kind of a tight bonding between these things. So otherwise you lose out the the content flow from one screen to another screen. But in order to test all these things, you require a emulator environment or a simulator environment for a checking a precise data with respect to the goals or the design artifacts of the specific applications. Otherwise it is it's very difficult to get more number of customers for that specific applications. And once this application is being developed, so normally organizations uh, will charge or give it free of charge, depending upon the number of users and the usage of that specific apps. And if more and more customers are using this app for say commercial purposes or maybe for some other personal uses, so they will have some kind of a charge. Okay, so that it will be a revenue generation scheme for them. Okay, there are various procedures to do all these things. So next, coming to task analysis. Okay, so as I said, every organizations will have different categories of carrying out the user acceptance, the procedures in order to carry out this. So standard user acceptance testing procedures will apply to all the mobile context, and testing will be continuing to monitor the results until the time, budget, and questions runs out. See, the basic question is, how do we know when should we stop testing? So this is a very important question. Uh, in fact, I cannot tell that okay, you continue testing for 3 months, or you continue testing for say 6 months, or you continue the testing for another say to test only these features of testing. And testing is a never ending process. So as and when you keep on testing, so new problems keeps on arising. So when new problems keeps on arising, so you have to intimate it to a developers to resolve that specific bugs. So I hope all of you are aware of this defect life cycle, the scenario where there will be a provision to test certain aspects of the project at different intervals of time, whether it's a new test cases, or whether it is opened test cases, whether it is closed, whether it is having a high severity or high priority, whether it is having a low severity, high priority, medium priority. So under severity and priority of the test cases also, you have low, medium, and high. Okay, so depending upon the urgency and importance of that specific test cases, okay, the people just try to carry out the testing procedures. Okay, so this is all about the task analysis. The second point is about information design tools. Okay, this information design tools are nothing but how information has to be put in the mobile devices by using various tools. Okay, see, one is putting the contents. Second is making the information to be available on a specific boundaries. Okay, whether it is very much visible, okay, whether there is a clarity, etc. Okay, so information design is also an art. So everybody cannot do this. So in the information design and tools, there are 5 entities. That is all about sketching and wireframes, mock-up designs, prototype, on-device testing, and usage of these things on simulator and emulator. So these are the 5 entities which can be used in designing the information as a tool to be projected on the mobile devices. So, creating the mobile applications interface requires a range of tools, and only by using this kind of tools what I specified right now will enable the mobile developers to make user interface more attractive and more lucrative to the end users. The first point, the sketching and wireframes. What do you mean by that? Maybe I will just show you a sketch. See, this is the difference what you can see between sketching and wireframes. Are you able to see the image?
Sir,
Are
you
you
please
able to
zoom
see
it
the
little
image?
bit, sir.
No, sir.
Sir, you zoom it.
Huh?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. Right.
Sir, if you please zoom it, na, sir, then it will be very clear, sir.
Uh, I just wanted to show you about what is this sketching, and because orally explaining would be very difficult. So in that way, I just wanted to show you the difference. Now, to some extent, it is okay.
No, sir, you zoom it little bit more, sir.
No, see, you don't worry about the contents which is there in the image.
Okay, okay.
Okay, no, don't worry about contents. Okay, it is just an example. That's it.
Okay, sir. Now then it's visible, sir.
Okay, don't worry about the contents. You need not worry about contents here. So the first is what is called as a sketching. Okay, so before actually you just try to design the contents and deploy it in the mobile devices, you'd like to know how it looks. Okay, so that is what sketching. So sketching can be done by using stencils. There is a device called as a mobile stencils, which will help you to uh, conduct some kind of a framework for your mobile devices. See, if you look at the left side, that is a white screen here, which is just above the wording sketching. See, this is actually a mobile, the stencil. There is also a tool or a screen. Okay, through this mobile stencil, so it is possible to start defining your concept. Okay, basically this mobile sketching will give you understanding about how you would like to have your contents to be displayed on the design. You just you will not go to a device for deployment or implementation directly. See, sketching, you can just think like just taking a sheet of paper and doing a sketching. Okay. See, when I ask you to design a user interface, so you normally, immediately you don't go to HTML or CSS. What you do, you take a sheet of paper. Okay, then you just try to draw. So these are the labels. Okay, these are the text fields. These are the buttons. These are the radio buttons. These are the check boxes. This is a calendar. Okay, this is a submit button. This set button. You just try to form a layout, okay, in a sheet of paper. Once you feel that is okay, or it is being accepted by your supervisor, then you go on starting the implementation. Okay, similarly in the mobile platform, so there is a device or a tool called as a mobile stencil, through which you can just try to draw like this. Okay, and you can just connect it to your laptop or computer, and you can see how it looks. So that is what is the sketching is. So it is basically a concept. Okay, so before actually you just try to develop an user interface on the mobile to see how it looks, because that is a time consuming process. Okay, so before that you can use this mobile stencil, just try to draw something like this. Okay, connect that device into a screen and see how it looks. So, and dynamically it can be made editable. Whatever changes that you want to do it, that is possible to do it. Okay, so this is just defining the concept about your apps. Suppose if I ask you now, you develop a mobile app so that the students can use it. Okay, now when you tell this concept, so different students will have a different kinds of features into a mind. Okay, so first they will just try to chalk it out, how it should be, what content should be there. First, it should be a login, or whether it should be some kind of a splash screen. Okay, or it should be some kind of information about the college or the department. Okay, when I click on a button, or whether I swipe or tap, whatever it is, how it is going to a next screen. So basically you are just trying to have some kind of a framework and a sketching concept. Okay, this is sketching. What is this wireframe? Wireframes is nothing but when I click on a specific button, or when I swipe, or when tap, when I pinch it, what information should be displayed, how it should be displayed, where it should be displayed, what should be the kind of layout it should have. Okay, whether it should be a flashy kind of an image, or it should be a normal image. Okay, and at what position it should be. If I'm going to a next screen, how it should be made visible. So will there be any kind of overlapping? If the end users try to zoom that image, whether there will be some kind of overlapping or underlapping, something like that. Okay, if I just try to zoom again, whether any informations will be hidden, or the messages which are there will get cluttered. What information has to be displayed? Okay, what are the different icons that you see in the next screen when I click on that button? So going more detail into each of these things is nothing but a wireframe. Okay, the right image what you are seeing is an example for a wireframe. You can see, so there is a layout being designed. At the top of the screen, what information should be displayed? Okay, how much the screen should be, which layouts has to be used, how the screens has to be divided, what should be the maximum size of the screen, okay, what should be the maximum, the layout, which layout has to be used, whether it is relative layout, linear layout, constraint layout, table layout, what layouts it has to be used. At the bottom of the screen, how it should be, okay, whether I can toggle between the screens. So all these concepts are being understood under the wireframes. So basically you just try to give more information. Okay, so whether it is whether it is very easy to move to different components within the screens and other things, you can just try to understand under the wireframes. So sketching and wireframes is actually one and the same. Okay, here you are just going to create a layout. So here you are going to give more information. Sketching is just a concept. Wireframe is redefining the contents of the concept. Because see, it is not possible to satisfy all kinds of users. See, somebody likes yellow color, somebody likes green color, somebody likes pink color, somebody likes the font should be in a specific type, color should be in a specific type. So like this, each users will have different perspectives on the screen, what they see. So this sketching and wiring is concept and redefining the concept. Okay, so that is sketching and the wireframes. Next is a mock-up design. So mock-up design is nothing but it talks about visual graphics and the placing the contents on the screen. So what do you mean by that? So which colors has to be used for which screens? What kind of fonts has to be used? Okay, whether the images which is being put in the apps, whether it should be a JPEG or it should be a PNG or it should be a GIF, whatever it is, what should be the resolution of that, the specific image. what kind of background colors and foreground colors should be given. Suppose if there is a voice the feature in that application, okay, how it should be, okay, and if there are any musics in that, okay, whether it should be mp3 or mp4 or maybe another other versions of the musics, okay, and how buttons needs to be placed, where it has to be placed. So anyway, that will be captured in the information. So yeah, it's basically about visual graphics, whether it should be a rounded button or it should be a rectangular button, or it would be a flashy buttons, okay, and what should the space between the buttons, okay. So like this, you are going to think about visual graphics and the content placements under the mockup design. So it gives you the informations about the shapes, about the font color and size, similarly foreground and background color and size, the contents where it has to be plates, levers and other things. So this is about the mockup designs. Okay, so now I know what information needs to be put, how it has to be put. Okay, so I know the layout and the sketching and wireframes. Okay, now I know what are the graphical contents that I need to put it in under the mockup designs. Now I have to do a prototyping. Okay, see, what is prototyping? See, prototyping is nothing but you just try to imitate the actual working model. Okay, so before actually you are trying to deploy it and in the play stores, or actually deploying it in the place where you want it to deploy, you just try to do a prototyping of your the applications. Okay, and you try to increase the perfection, okay, in your applications. So that means there will be n number of the iterations that is going to happen uh, in the prototyping, okay, which you just try to take it the prototyping right from the the reasonable prototypes very quickly to a more elegant and usable applications. So this almost requires a different kind of the interfaces and many number of iterations at different levels. And there are different tools which are available to use this. Maybe for iOS you have something called as an Xcode is available. Okay, so similarly, for Android, you have different tools. Okay, so which comes in Android Studio framework under the the concept of activity.xml file. Okay, and similarly, if you are just trying to build a protographical interactions, so you can have this HTML and CSS also as W3 standards. So prototyping basically talks about whether the sketching and wireframes and mockup designs, all these things are consistent as per the customer's expectations and end users' perceptions. See, if I am an end user, how I want my the application. So I should think from a developer perspective, and also I should think more from the end user's perspective. So prototyping is always required before you actually just try to roll it out. So in the software projects also it happens like that. So you don't take all the requirements, build it, then give it to a customer, then go for testing, and you don't go and ask, okay, customer, that is it what you required? If it says no, or if you change again, it is all a rework. Okay, it takes a lot of time, which incur a lot of cost, which incur a lot of efforts. To overcome all these things, just try to design a prototype and get the approval from the concerned people, then go on doing the implementation. So which will save you the time, cost and efforts. So that is all about a prototype. Next, one of the very important thing is testing. Okay, since this device testing, on device testing means you are just trying to test your applications on different kinds of devices. Okay, and take the feedback how it is responding from the user interaction perspective from the different angles. Okay, and correspondingly you just try to do it. See it, many times it so happens that you just try to fix the drawbacks if the apps is showcasing some cluttered kind of an interactions in the tablets. You just try to fix that, but it will have an impact on the 5-inch screen or say 4-inch screen. Okay, so the font might be too big, or the image might be too big, or maybe some other information you cannot read sometimes in the 4-inch screen or 5-inch screen. So these mobile developers will try to develop applications such a way that more or less it has to work on all kinds of devices on all kinds of platforms. But who will tell that? So that is a task of mobile testers. Once that application is ready at different points of time, okay, so this will be given to a mobile testers to test how it is interacting or behaving on a different devices. Okay, next is the last thing is simulator and emulator. Okay, so, I will just show you the difference between a simulator and an emulator. Okay, so as I said, it is not the possible to test the complete the features of the apps in all devices. Okay, and before you just try to implement on different mobile devices, you just try to do a prototyping. So in order to execute your applications on different devices, so we will have a concept of what is called as a virtual device. Okay, these emulators are nothing but a virtual device. Probably tomorrow in the lab I will showcase you what are the different Android virtual devices. Okay, so this emulator is the application that emulates the real mobile device softwares, hardware, and operating system, allowing us to test and debug the applications. That means you will have a feel when this application is deployed in the actual mobile devices, how it is going to behave. So this virtual environment can be seen in the emulator. Okay, so there are different kinds of virtual devices which I will be showcasing in the lab tomorrow. Okay, next, emulator is usually provided by the device manufacturers. Okay, so and there are different kinds of manufacturers. Samsung, you have Apple, you have Windows, you have Carbon. Okay, like that, there are a lot of mobile manufacturers will be there. So these manufacturers will have to give this virtual device platforms which will be embedded in a Android software development kit. See, we know only that Android software development kit, but there are a lot of other tools which are available. See, for developing this iOS based applications, you have a different kind of, you have something called as Xcode interface builder, where you can build apps exclusively or explicitly for iOS. Similarly, for Windows, you have it. But nowadays, we are getting a framework in such a way that in one framework, you can test any category of, the mobile devices. Next, emulators are written in machine level assembly languages. It cannot be written in high level languages because it has to interact with the hardware devices. So hence it is being written in a machine level assembly language. And emulators are more suitable for debugging. See, this is very important. Why this concept? Because see, whenever you are trying to deploy application in the mobile platform, so first you have to build Okay, what do you mean by building? See, there are a lot of tools and other components, okay, which will come together, which will make your application ready for deployment. So, in a very simple manner, if I want to tell, see, whenever you are just trying to install any kind of file in the Android platform, so all that files will be in .apk file. Okay, so in order to generate a .apk file, there are a lot of components which will come together to form a APK file. Even if one component which is missing, then it is not possible to generate a APK file. So hence, it has to be built first, and there is a tool or utility called as Gradle, okay, in the Android Studio framework, so which will help you to build this .apk file. Once your APK files are built, then only it is possible to run your applications. Okay, so next, last but not the least, so this emulator always comes as a complete informations of your original software. So that means in the manufacturing, by the manufacturer will have the actual original emulator which is being built on this specific hardware devices. Okay, so this is what is an emulator is. Next is a simulator. Okay, what is a simulator? A simulator is a less complex application that simulates the internal behavior of a device, but it does not emulate hardware and does not work on a real operating system. Okay, so what is a simulation? Simulation can be used as an analysis tool, and it can be used as a inference tool. That means if you want to understand the relations between various components of that specific application, then we go for the simulation. Say for example, you'd be knowing, suppose if I want to train pilots, I will not give them the actual aircraft. So what I will do, I will do the simulation, how they are, trained to fly. Because what happens if I give them an actual flight, aircraft to fly, then anything may happen, any damages can happen, which I will incur loss in crores. Instead of that, I will create a simulating environment as if they personally feel that they are flying the aircraft. Okay, but all said and done, it will not give a real world, the feeling in the simulation environment. But nowadays, even when you want to go for a driving a car, learn to drive a car, so in most of the places they have a simulator. So they don't give a vehicle to drive. Instead of that, they will make you to sit on a simulator and give that kind of a feeling. And this simulator will be created by a device manufacturer or by some other company. That means there are a third party, developers who will give you this kind of a third party simulator to integrate in your devices. So it is not much reliable when compared to emulator. So emulator will give you a good response, whereas a simulator might not give a good response. Next, simulators are written in high level languages. Okay, so because it won't interact much with a real world kind of a system, so hence it is being written in high level languages. Okay, it's more about the graphical contents and visual display from the end user's perspective. Next is a simulator. Simulators can be difficult for a debugging purpose. For example, what happens if you are using simulators? If you have any kind of a problem, so it will be only stuck. Okay, either your application might crash, or it will be hanged up, or nothing might happen. But it is not exactly possible to understand why some bugs are arising, okay, why something is not working. I think most of you have played lot of online video games. Okay, so when you are playing games, so at certain level it will just stop, but you are not aware of the reason. So drawback in using internet might be one issue, but there might be some other problem with respect to playing game. Maybe it might be a software problem, or it might be a hardware problem, or there might be a memory leakage, etc. There might be various other kinds of problems. By using simulators, it is little bit difficult to debug the application. But whereas emulators, until you debug 100%, and until unless there are there are no errors, so it is not possible to run the system. But simulators are not like that. Okay, so emulator is a complete implementation, whereas a simulator is just a partial implementation. Okay, so that's all about today's class. Maybe just hang up. Maybe I have just quiz part. Maybe some 2-3 questions I will be asking. So then you can just answer it. So in the meantime, if you have any clarifications, you might ask. All of you are able to see my screen? Please go to menti.com and use the code 6912671. Please answer the question. So which is better for debugging? Whether it is an emulator or simulator or none? Please answer this question. So only 1921. Just try to answer the question. I will have one more question. Of please again go to menti.com and just try to give the answer for this. The code is 6912 671. Okay, so any clarifications?
No, sir.
Okay, I think I'm done with the first unit. Tomorrow we will just try to do the lab. Okay, so those who are having laptops, no, please try to have your laptops, and those who are not having laptops, I think you can just try to explore some mobile virtual lab. I am also just trying to explore. If I'm getting, I'm just sharing you a link with it. Okay, and